Good morning, students. Today we'll see respiratory system. 5 points, essential points. Point number 1, the functional anatomy. See, respiration occurs due to oxygenate the tissues. So it involves two processes, inspiration and expiration. Inspiration is an active process, expiration is a passive process. And the muscles of inspiration are the diaphragm, external intercostal muscles, and accessory muscles like sternomastoid and scalene anterior. For a normal expiration, it is an elastic recoiling of the lungs. For forced expiration, the muscles involved are internal intercostal muscle and abdominal muscles. And these muscles, we go for the second point, how they are regulated. Okay, so there is regulation of respiration. The muscles are supplied by the two neurons. One is the phrenic motor neuron, which supplies the diaphragm, and thoracic motor neurons that supplies the muscles, external intercostal muscles and internal intercostal muscles. Now these neurons in turn controlled by the dorsal respiratory group neuron in the medulla, which controls the inspiration, and ventral respiratory group neuron, which controls the muscles of expiration. And these two are the centers in the medulla. And we have a pacemaker neuron called pre-Botzinger complex in the medulla, which switch on and switch off the inspiration and expiration. And the medullary centers in turn controlled by the regulated by the Fontaine centers. We have apneustic center, which constantly activate the inspiratory neurons, and pneumotaxic center, which inhibit the apneustic center. So the role of pneumotaxic is to limit the inspiration. Then the role of vagus. So vagus or the afferents from the stretch receptor in the airways. When the lung go for inflation, this stretch receptor activated and vagus send impulses, and it will inhibit the dorsal inspiratory neurons. So the inspiration is limited. So this is regarding the regulation of respiration as a second point. Now third point is, now the lung is expanding. So how the mechanics taking place? When the inspiration occurs, the intrapleural pressure becomes more negative from -2 to -6. It acts as a suction, and it pulls the lung, it expands the lung, and the intrapulmonary pressure falls, and the air is pulled from atmosphere to the lungs. So this is the way. So there is a change in the intrapleural pressure and change in the intrapulmonary pressure. The reverse happens in the expiration. The intrapleural pressure become less negative, and the intrapulmonary pressure become positive, and the air is pushed out of the lungs. Now this change in the volume with change in the pressure is called compliance. Compliance is a measure of the expansibility or stretchability of the lung. The normal value is 200 ml per centimeter of water. Now the third point is the resistance. The resistance for the expansion is provided by the tissue elastic forces, that is recoiling forces, and surface tension. So what is surface tension? It is a tension existing in the alveoli due to air-water interface or air-liquid interface, and this surface tension is reduced by surfactant. So surfactant reduces the surface tension and helps in the easy expansion of the lung. So lack of surfactant will lead to respiratory distress syndrome. So surfactant is basically a phospholipid, dipometyl phosphatidyl-choline. Now the fourth point is the lung volumes and capacities. So we have four lung volumes: tidal volume, inspired reserve volume, expired reserve volume, and residual volume. So air inspired or expired normally is called tidal volume, that is 500 ml. Inspired reserve volume is extra volume of air that is inspired to the maximum level after normal inspiration. Expired reserve volume is the extra volume of air that is expired after a normal expiration, and residual volume is the volume of air remaining in the lungs. And we have capacities, four capacities. The total lung capacity is the maximum amount of air the lung can accommodate. Then we have vital capacity, it is the sum of inspired reserve volume, tidal volume, and expired reserve volume. It is an amount of air maximum expired after taking maximum inspiration. Then we have functional residual capacity. It is the amount of air remaining in the lung after normal expiration. It is a sum of expired reserve volume and residual volume. And regarding the fifth point, the oxygen. Now the oxygen which is transported into the blood, it is carried by the hemoglobin, that is explained by the oxygen dissociation curve. And here at partial pressure of 26 millimeter of mercury of oxygen, the hemoglobin is 50% saturated. So when the curve shifts to the right side, it shows decreased affinity of oxygen for hemoglobin, and when the curve shifts to the left, it shows the increased affinity of oxygen for hemoglobin. Factors decreased affinity or hypoxia, high altitude acidosis. So what happens in acidosis? There is decrease in the pH. So affinity of oxygen hemoglobin is decreased, and this was explained as Bohr effect. And increased affinity, that is when the curve shifts to the left, is due to fetal hemoglobin and the decreased level of 2,3-diphosphoglycerate. So the role of 2,3-diphosphoglycerate is very important. Increase of this 2,3-DPG will decrease affinity, and decrease of 2,3-DPG will increase the affinity. Now the last point is hypoxia. So what is hypoxia? That is low oxygen level at the level of tissues. It is of hypoxia when the intake of oxygen is less due to lung diseases. Anemic hypoxia when the carrier hemoglobin is low or due to carbon monoxide poisoning. And stagnant hypoxia due to the low blood circulation, slow blood circulation. The last one is histotoxic hypoxia. It is due to the cyanide poisoning. So these are some of the essential points. To be added, you should know about dead space. That is the part of the respiratory tract where there is no gas exchange takes place. And physiological dead space includes the anatomical dead space plus the air that is wasted in the alveoli, which is not perfused. Then you have the last point is you should remember the other applied aspects to be added also. Thank you. Yes.